I'm Steve McLaughlin, Dean of the Georgia Tech College of Engineering, and this is The Uncommon Engineer.
Fine. 1-800. We live in an age.
Sounds incredibly complex. It sounds like students, you need to have abilities that span. I'm really geeking out here. I'm curious to hear more about the sewing project for the widows. How did that all start? Where did that all come from? How did those relationships develop? There's an aha moment in there somewhere, and I'm curious to learn more about that.
So that project came about when I took students to Kenya. We went there to see what we could do to serve the community and to also implement a previous project that my students had worked on. While we were there, our sponsors for the trip, the organization is called Partners for Care, and John Hirbo is the man in Kenya who's working with the community. He showed us first, he took us to the village. We got to meet the people. The women are beautiful and statuesque and strong and powerful. And we got to talk to them. He translated, and then we saw their facilities. And he took us to this room and says, this is an empty room, but I want to put sewing machines in this room. And I asked him why. Okay, that seems odd. And then he explained to me, there's a community that I want to empower, and you didn't get to meet them because they're outcasts, or they tend not to interact with the rest of society. People just consider them to be not valuable and not contributing. And he said, but I have an opportunity. I just don't have the resources to meet this opportunity. And he told me more about the contract that he was able to get with the school system and the widows who want to learn to sew. And he said, the problem is all we have are electric sewing machines. That's a real issue in a low resource country. So by him saying that, I thought, oh, well, we can make them not electric. That's not so difficult for them to still operate, but with a foot pedal. And we talked about some different options. It's interesting. It used to be a lot cheaper to buy one with a foot pedal, but now that is vintage. You'll pay 3 times as much for a mechanical one. And as we talked more, I thought, okay, how I helped him to walk through how many do you need? How many people can you serve? What impact can you make? Will this be sustainable? Because I've also learned in this work, a single one-time donation to a non-sustainable project actually doesn't help. It hurts more than it helps. And once we had a sustainability plan in place, then I said, okay, we can do this. The other, what I would say really cool thing about this project, what I appreciate is he is learning. So we don't have a retrofitting sewing machine factory here. We chose one and then designed the process to do it and then made it simple so that a non-engineer can replicate that process, because it doesn't make sense to send 10 machines to Atlanta and then ship 10 machines to Marsabit. It makes a lot more sense just to ship them to Marsabit and then show him how to do the one. And so that project it came out of actually visiting and talking and seeing the community and understanding how we could help. So, for example, Coca-Cola. I'm doing a project with Coca-Cola in the spring. Coca-Cola has a mission to replenish every drop of water that they take. And it's actually a business directive because they can't make Coke without water. And so they recognize the communities in which we serve, and Coke is everywhere. There needs to be clean water for the people to drink in order for there to be clean water for us to make Coca-Cola. And joining a company like that, where it's not, the social impact of clean water is not relegated to corporate social responsibility, it is ingrained in the business mission, then students, when you're at a company like that, you're going to inevitably make a difference day to day. And then the third way is to teach people what you know. Even if you only know a little, you really can teach somebody else that thing, and then you increase their capacity to do stuff. Our engineering students are brilliant. And many times you can take this humongously complex technical solution and simplify it so that a person who's not trained in engineering can still accomplish it. And when you do that, you allow that person to then go forth and make their own impact. You've changed their lives. So I try to work with our students to do that as engineers and improve their careers, but also the people that they touch every day.
Famed plant wizard Luther Burbank.
For a high school student or a parent or even, a high school guidance counselor who's listening and really resonates with the idea of getting an engineering education or a STEM education, but for societal good, that for the purpose of their education is to have a societal impact. What would you tell them to do now, whether they're in junior high school or high school, and how do you prepare yourself for a technological career, but for social good?
The way that I prepare my high school interns is I pair them with a nonprofit organization, and I give them a technical volunteer project. For example, one of my high school students did a great job of working on a project for the city of East Point. The city of East Point, I know one of the city councilmen, and he's interested in revitalizing many of the homes that are abandoned throughout the city. But he needs to find those homes. He needs to know physical addresses for where they're located. And the goal is to reclaim those homes for the city and then give them to public service workers. So to police officers, to firemen, to teachers, to people who work for the state, in order to, first of all, give them affordable housing, but then also let them rehabilitate the homes, rehab them, refurbish them, and make the community thrive again. Having police officers in your community makes it safe. Having teachers in your community helps. Having social workers, all of these public services is going to help. And so I gave this student a technical project to actually help locate the homes. He designed an application, a mobile application, to pinpoint where the homes are, given utility records, locate the address, put it on a map, and then see what the surrounding area is like as well, so that now the city councilman can market these homes, because he knows where they are, to public service workers in the community to eventually start the process of giving these homes away, and they rehabilitate them or rehab them. Now, I could have given that student a manual volunteer project to drive around the city and look. But that does not increase his technical skill set at all. And it's also not effective. It's not scalable. But by giving him a technological project and then helping him go through that volunteer assignment had a lot more meaning and sustenance. And it also made a much bigger impact, because now that process, we gave it to the councilman. And as he wants to look at other pockets throughout his community, he can do that. So I would say, if you want to volunteer, instead of going to the soup kitchen and serving food, look at the organization that's serving the food and help them maximize or minimize food waste. Help them to determine the foot traffic that they need so that they're able to serve more people in a more timely manner. Develop a way for them to manage their queues. Do something to increase the capacity of the organization. That's going to help build the student's technical skill set, but it also is a great story for your college application. It's great to go to the soup kitchen and serve food, but you make a much bigger impact when you help the soup kitchen to serve more food.
And so So for that student, for that because many high schools now require some kind of community service project. So
Right.
you're saying that the student who's going to go to the soup kitchen, rather than saying, hey, when can I serve soup? That student might say, what are the problems you're facing in running your soup kitchen?
Yes. What problems are you facing? And how can I help you solve those problems? Yes.
Yeah, that's fantastic to hear, because so many of the great leaders, and we always hear these stories of, that are not the 3.5 and the 3.75.
Right.
And it's can you talk about the students that aren't the 3.75 or 3.5, and the students that, from a grade standpoint, are maybe just barely making it, but have so much more to bring to the table and add and contribute? Talk about those students.
Yes. These are the students who their focus is not just on academics. They really are looking to throw themselves into research. They have side projects going on. The student who actually came to me to build the air purification project to serve his community in India, by far not a 3.75 student, because he is seriously looking at ionizers and combustion engines and moss to help his community. And he's in good academic standing. He'll have no problem getting a job. But his focus really is on, let me learn what I need to learn in my studies so that I can apply it to this work and this project and this impact, as opposed to, let me learn what I need to learn to ace the exam. And in his classes, I do talk to him about his courses. He gets the content and then he applies it. He may not always get 100 on the exam, but he gets the knowledge. And he's the type of student who is going to do something great in this world. And I have many, many students like that. They really are taking courses because they want to learn the material. And sometimes that doesn't come across in the exam or in the grade. But when you talk to them, they've got it. They understand it. And they're using it every day.
Well, I mean, and whether you're a company or whether you're a parent or whether you're a leader, at the end of the day, those are the kinds of graduates we want in society. And so what have you learned, or help all of us communicate that's really what's most important. It's getting good grades is important if you want to go to med school, and we don't want to kind of dissuade that, but at the end of the day, that sometimes grades are not the most important thing. And what kind of advice would you give to parents or to companies or to the students? That it isn't the grades aren't the most important thing. Help us, help me as a parent, help me as a professor or dean, because I think we want well-rounded students who really do care about making a difference and not just getting the grades.
We do. I agree. As a parent, I remind myself, and when I host recruiting sessions, I remind our parents, the student who only studies should have good grades because all you do is study. However, companies want students with experience, which means you have to take some time to divide that focus. And students who are happy need other passions in their life outside of the classroom. And so to the parents, I want them to know a well-rounded student with a 3.0 is going to thrive and flourish more so than a 4.0 student who has a blank resume. After you get past that 4.0 line at the top, if there's nothing else of sustenance or value, that student is not going to thrive after graduating. And to the students, I would like to say no one has asked me my GPA in a long time. maybe 20 years. I can't remember. The fact that I graduated is enough. The background check says, did you graduate from this school with this degree? And the answer is yes. And that is all that matters. So I was very happy for my 3.32 GPA. I was excited. Very excited. I got into graduate school and lived happily ever after. I don't even know what my grad school GPA was because at that point, it just didn't matter anymore. And I remember all of the sleepless nights that I stressed over grades as an undergrad. And I look back, I wish I could tell that me to go to sleep. Go to sleep, rest, and everything will be fine. And for the companies that I deal with on a regular basis, they want a student who's in good academic standing. But I've actually had recruiters tell me that they scrutinize a 4.0 a lot more closely because they're concerned, first, that the student doesn't understand what failure looks like. And in any corporate setting, you're going to fail. It's part of the learning process. But then also they want to know what else has that student done. That their GPA and we do have 4.0 amazing students who are doing everything. I love them and appreciate them and would want to be them when I grow up. But for those students who are not that, a lot of corporations are completely happy and elated because those students are doing so many more things to supplement and complement that GPA.